It's that time of year, folks, where we have annual planning in your companies. But here's the thing. Do you continue what you're doing today? Or do you start thinking a different way, how to approach your annual planning? And so today we're going to talk about annual planning and OKRs and 3 tips that you don't want to miss. So stay tuned, starting now. All right, welcome everyone here on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. Most of you probably are on LinkedIn checking us out, and welcome. So today we have a special guest, and this is actually a special live event that Roxana and I are hosting, which we think is super cool, with LaSalle from Scaled Agile, or
Scaled OKRs.
OKRs. What? I got Agile on my brain.
It's okay. I got Agile on the brain too.
So, anyways, thank you for coming. This is cool stuff because this is a hot topic out there today, knowing the timing of year it is for companies.
Yeah.
And so we said, why not, right? And so we are going to be talking about 3 tips of why you want to start thinking about this annual planning of what we traditionally do in OKR. So you ready to jump into our first topic?
Let's jump.
Thank
you for having me. Thank you both.
Oh, we love guests. So
before we start, like for me, I'm really into this because I don't come from the Agile world, and I used to do a lot of annual planning back in my corporate days. So this is wow. If I had this back then, I would have been thrilled, happy.
Yeah, with lawyers too, right? You worked with a company of lawyers.
Yeah, like, can you imagine? This would have saved me. So yeah, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, the hope really is that we're moving away from traditional annual planning, right? So we're not trying to suggest that we're gonna build upon the traditional way of working. We're really wanting to change the way that we're approaching it. And frankly, why the timing of this is so important is because, frankly, when we get stuck into a list of annual projects, I think we get a little disoriented within an organization, and we are literally just chasing dates and tasks and outputs. And really, there's no systemic way for us to kind of get out of it until like the next annual planning cycle, when we try and say, well, we'll learn from our mistakes the prior year, those kinds of things.
And it's probably Groundhog Day that typically happens because it's like anything when it comes to changing. If you don't really change the way you think and approach something, it is going to be Groundhog Day. And we see it all the time as Agile coaches going into organizations, especially how it impacts the execution layer when they're highly dependent on what happens above them.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's so interesting about annual planning, and I would add in really project funding into the same conversation. What's interesting about it is those 2 things that are the planning, the upfront planning, annual planning, and the funding are so critical to the work that we can get done as an organization throughout the course of a year. And all the improvements that we're generally trying to make, from an Agile perspective or whatever, goal setting improvements, the 2 things that are usually out of scope for that are the annual planning cycle and the fiscal budgeting. And so we're kind of stuck in a paradigm of traditional annual planning while we're trying to create these modern workforces and these cross-functional collaborative Agile teams and becoming more product-centric. And the things that hold us really hostage are the things that are the most difficult to change in the organization. And it's mostly because of where it sits in the organization. Senior leadership, that aren't really intrigued by Agile conversations, frankly. They really don't want to talk Agile in many cases.
Yeah, it's just an enabler for them. And it's not necessarily their focus, right? It's like, okay, well, if that gives me X, fine, do it. I don't care.
That's right. And so, what we want to do with more of this outcome-based planning is start to move toward getting more focus and clarity on what are the things that we're actually trying to accomplish in the organization. Because if we have to try to figure that out through a list of 100 or 200 projects to figure out what we're doing, we're going to have a hard time figuring out what it is we're doing, because
there's
we're
so
just
much minutia to it.
Yeah, there's so much
it's
minutia to it.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
And these projects are huge. Some of them, they take
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So it's looking at a list, right? And this is just a human essence, that the longer the list and the bigger it looks, we get so overwhelmed. And those emotions of being overwhelmed, you don't think it has a direct impact on the actions and behaviors we have. It's a broken system in a sense that just creates this chain reaction throughout every layer in an organization.
That's exactly right. And that's why ultimately, when you get down to, the, our frontline, folks that are boots on the ground, technical leads, developers, the mind share of folks that are doing the work for us, they are, they'll describe that they feel like they work in a feature factory. They'll describe that they feel like they don't know what the business or the organization is trying to do. They don't know really who the customer is or what real problem they're trying to solve for a customer. And a lot of times we can chop up a customer journey and break it up into so many different silos and pieces that literally people won't really understand how they kind of fit into the broader, customer perspective.
Yeah,
we can look at an example that I've got that'll really kind of, I think, highlight the difference in a way of thinking. So brevity here in terms of the number of examples, but this would be an example of typical projects that we would, approve and fund and put into a system of delivery, Agile, whatever, whoever's going to do the work. Things like this. We want customer sign-up enhancements, simplify product catalog, enhance billing statements, things like that. Now, the thing that's interesting is what we find is when you start to now look deeply at those projects, you look at the fact that, okay, so, they were requested by different types of people, right? So you have a new customer product manager. This shows the siloing that's happening inside the organization. But then you look at the problem they're trying to fix. And so the customer sign-up issue you requested by your product manager is high call volume with difficult sign-up process. Similarly, you have a challenging product catalog that's resulting in a high call volume. Another example might be missed payments due to confusion on a bill, right? And so now what would an outcome-based approach be to solving this kind of pattern that we would see around annual planning time? What we would say is, let's get focused on the problem, right? Let's get focused on what it is to fix. In this case, we're saying we see pitfalls in our customer journey from sign up to bill pay and steps in between. So we want to develop a world-class end-to-end customer journey, and we'll measure that by this 75% decrease in customer calls requesting support with signing up. That's how we'll measure what it is that we're actually solving this problem. And you can see the other examples: 50% increase in first-time customer purchases, meaning the shopping experience is improved, 25% decrease in missed payments due to improved billing statements, etc. Now, then you overlay the things we can do. So now this objective, it gives us direction. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we think we can evaluate our progress along the way. And now you get down to the tasks or the projects and the things that we can do. For example, we can improve customer, and you can start to enrich the language of the projects now and the things that people are going to do, because it's better reflective of what it is that we're trying to solve as an organization. And then that also invites the opportunities to start to figure out how will we start to do some quarterly evaluation that we're actually solving the right problem the right way. And so then you could start to use leading indicators or near-term measures that we can look at to evaluate whether or not we're actually trying to, make progress toward this higher level key result.
And I love this because let's connect the dots here, especially when, some people are maybe thinking at the executing layer perspective.
Yeah.
Is that this connects you into why you're doing something. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely related to, if you can be so productive at that level, but doesn't mean that you're high performing. When we talk about high performing cultures, it has a direct correlation to doing the right things, right? We always use the analogy, Roxana and I, when it comes to athletes and being high performing athletes. There's no different in an organization that you need to have the right focus and doing the right things, or you're not going to get the results you need.
Right.
And so doing things really fast and learning how to get your velocity right, for even talking about the agile world, it's not going to mean anything if this stuff isn't connected.
Well, the important thing, I do want to make sure we touch on 2 points before we leave this topic. But
yeah, we got to jump into our next one.
The one example that I want to call out here is if you looked at the original list of projects, there were the example. The one was improve the billing statements, right? But you can look here, because of the way we develop an outcome-based OKR at the top here, it actually invites more creative thinking. So we may decide that we solve a problem with a completely different solution, because we've invited, instead of putting a project that has fixed scope, we put a problem statement out there and says how we'd like to evaluate our ability to solve that problem. A lot more creative thinking. This is what inspires, these modern workforces and these, engineering teams that are motivated and purpose-driven to solve these kinds of problems, so that you could label world-class. That's what we want to do.
Yeah. And exactly, in organizations, when we talk about the evolution to agility, it's not really necessarily about the agile frameworks when I say that, because there's a lot of organizations that are out there today using OKRs. They are being agile and they have a culture of agility. And they are using things like this, OKRs, because they know it's results driven with an outcome focus. And here's the great thing, because game-changing work always looks about what we talk about, people and bringing the human to work. It's so much more, and people are more enjoying what they do and become more highly motivated and engaged by being connected to purpose, being connected to know how they're doing something. So those of you that are focused on that side of the world, it is all connected. It's a win-win in my eyes.
Yeah. The last thing I want to touch on, and I agree with you entirely, Veronica, the last thing that I want to touch on this is the difficulty. If you have aspirations, if for an organization that has aspirations to adopt OKRs at some point, now is the time to do it. Because here's the deal.
Great point.
If you do traditional planning like it's always been done, and you get into 2022 and you start to try and create some Q1 OKRs, the problem is once you've got this approved list of projects, all of your OKRs start to reflect these initiatives that we are bound to do. And so this kind of aspirational driven goal setting framework that's, OKRs is now being used as almost a project management tactic.
Yeah, because the system already defined the behaviors and actions already. Right. It's already been predetermined, as I always say. Now, are we ready to jump into the next topic?
Let's jump into the next one. Yeah, let's jump into the next one because, and leave your slide up, and I'm just going to move to a different, I'm sorry, I have to click back, but I'm going to get to here. Just leave this up while we talk about this point, because it's a point that can't be missed when we're talking about OKRs and how they support this, not just an enhancement to how we do our annual planning, right? But now the OKRs and the way they're intended to be used is how we are able to execute and learn and adapt and maneuver on a quarterly basis. And so what does that look like? So when I teach OKRs, I offer up what I call the 5-step OKR cycle. The OKR cycle is a non-standard aspect of the OKR framework. It's there to basically reinforce that there is an underlying PDCA cycle related to OKRs, meaning we're looking to accomplish something, we're going to do it, and then we're going to evaluate our outcome, and then we're going to incorporate some learning, right? So there's a PDCA cycle to it. So what I have organizations do is I say, well, how can we incorporate this cycle into your current delivery method? Meaning we don't want OKRs to be additive over and above to everything we do. Meaning we're going to do our, some sort of sync meetings, planning meetings, staff meetings, and by the way, now we're going to do OKR meetings over and above everything else.
I call it the third arm syndrome, because it needs to be seamless and integrated into your everyday business.
Yeah. But there's some aspects of the cycle that are still so important to understand. So we definitely want to weave it in. So if we're doing portfolio sync meetings or some other type of meetings where we are evaluating our progress relative to our priorities, or we're making adjustments to our plans, etc., that's the place to start doing this evaluation of our progress toward our OKRs. But there's other things in the cycle that can't be missed that are that human side of things, like the fact that they're co-created, right? We work and we create these OKRs together. And as a team, as a leadership team, as an executive team, however we do it, we co-create them together. Let me give you an example of the nuance that's behind that, though.
This is huge too, folks. So listen up, because when we talk about breaking down silos and collaboration as a culture, this is going to help start creating that habitual muscle.
Yeah. And so for example, I was working recently with a leadership team, 10 IT leaders under a CIO, and they were doing OKRs, and they all decided to do their own set of OKRs. They had been doing that before they engaged me. And I said, so
that's playing out in my head right now.
Right. So you understand, one, the volume of OKRs that just got created, because now every leader has got, 3 to 5 OKRs. So this daunting number of OKRs. The other option would have been to see themselves as a leadership team and see themselves to develop the 3 to 5 priorities that they want to offer out to their organization. That shows a unified IT leadership team and a unified focus where we break down silos, because those goals cascade across. They don't live within verticals, if you will. And so that's super important. So the co-creation aspect, really important. That's built into the OKR cycle. And then the frequent check-ins. You want to make the evaluation of your OKRs fundamental to the way that we are evaluating our ongoing progress. This is why it complements agile delivery when you get to this point in an OKR cycle, because this is execution time now. And so when you're at this point, we are, delivering, we're collaborating, we're figuring out, we're planning and actually touching our customer and things like that at that point.
And this fits nicely for a lot, the most popular scaling framework out there is SAFe today, and everyone goes through these PIs. Well, think of quarterly OKRs, PIs, it fits nicely within those time boxes. I talk about this a lot. Of course, me trying to get people shifting to more outcome, focus versus output. I always find that the PI objectives always fall flat in that. And this is where we need to start going in them, not to go on a tangent, but this is getting some of you to think of all the things that are out there today and frameworks that we're using, how this can be used and integrated. It's so important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And all I wanted to do is, any of you that are watching right now live, if you have any questions, comments, please, drop us a line and are you using OKRs, or if you have any questions, comments about what we're talking about right now, even in the replay, because Larry's going to be watching the replay and seeing if there's comments to be able to answer question as well, and myself. But just wanted to put that plug in.
Yeah.
So from my non-agile world, like looking at this and hearing what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, especially in this VUCA world, right, where everything is changing, when we need to adapt fast. So of course, I would rather plan for the OKR for the 90 days rather than plan for a year, because that will also allow me to be more flexible and adapt and tweak what doesn't work, or what might become obsolete during those 90 days. And also what I'm thinking about is, because a lot of companies use KPIs, right? When they look at performance management, we're used to the KPI discussion. So where OKRs come in, the way I see them is like OKRs are the GPS that allows us to understand whether we're on the right path or not, or what the path is, decide on what the path is and where we're going, give us that sense of direction that you were talking about. And then with the KPIs, you make sure that your car can actually take you there, that you have everything in
business
place
as usual
to get there. That's the business
Yeah.
as usual. It's not, because I think for people who don't understand the difference between the two, that's maybe an important distinction to make, because they don't necessarily exclude each other. They can complement one another.
Yeah, there's
Absolutely.
HR. Those of you that are in that space, we know that we talk about outcome-based management and outcome-based performance management. And so this is all connected and tied together when we talk about our evolution to agility as an organization. And so OKRs isn't necessarily just like a thing, like I'm going to make it the KPI. This is a strategic framework that you can also tie into your people strategies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more that we're obviously not going to get into today, and maybe that's a part 2. But this is that secret sauce. Now, I didn't know if we were ready to jump into our last topic here.
Well, the only thing I want to just reinforce with the cycle here is the last thing that ties it back to this annual planning aspect. Because when we're having a discussion with OKRs and annual planning, we've got the attention of our executives at that point, right? We are talking about leaders in the organization,
which is huge.
So when we're able to get OKRs established at that level, now we get leadership that cares about those outcomes that we've defined. And now they get the benefit at each quarter of being able to adapt, which gives us really what we want, which is strategic agility. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't want to say at the first start of the year, we're going to go this way, and then we're just going to stay, headstrong without any change. If we have the information and the advantage and the ability through KPIs and other means of evaluating our progress along the way on a quarterly basis, adapt. Strategic agility,
This is for those of you, I know that between Larry and I, we have a lot of people in the Agile space that are transformation leads or people that are really helping drive change in their organization and wanting to get the executive leaders joining that journey, right? That's been like a tough nut to crack for some. Those that you don't have that problem, yay, great. But those of you that are challenged, this is one of the things that can help connect that. This is where I always say is if you're starting, I'm going to call the word transformation. I don't necessarily like that. I like evolution to agility, but I'm just going to say that word for right now, is that we need to be strategic. It needs to tie into your business strategies or they won't be connected to it, period.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, we can move to that last topic if you want to. So I want to just put this up while we talk about this topic. And unfortunately, that's a little small. I apologize.
We'll talk through it.
Yeah, so really there's another push today that's related to our project-centric way of working, which is this project to product way of working and thinking, a much more customer-centric, more hands-on, customer empathy focused way of developing and thinking about the way in which, we focus on solving our customers' real problems. That's the goal, right? Solve real problems and create real value for the customer. So to enable that, OKRs can become the catalyst that actually product managers that lead this transition of project to product thinking is good product management thinking. They use that OKR cycle almost now as their what I coach product managers to do with OKRs is actually develop their vision and express their vision through OKRs. Yeah.
If moving from, and it depends on where organizations are, but my whole goal is to try to get them more outcome focused and everything that's going to help shift that.
Yeah.
I always experience where there are a lot of companies that do not have advanced product management practices out there today. It is what it is. I go into a lot of them, and you do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're even adopting, and I'm just going to go the safe route for right now, since it's a popular one, and I love the PI objectives, right? Most of the time when they're writing them, I call them SART. because they can't even do the measurable.
Right.
And so all of what we're talking about is really helping shift and measuring what matters, not only in a strategic perspective, but also your product strategy.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Right. I like to take the measure what matters statement a little further. And I like to
Do
just
it.
say, measure what matters now, measure what matters today. Like, let's know we need to be close enough that we don't have to really kind of figure that question out, but we have our finger on the pulse, so to speak.
And that finger on the pulse is huge right now, because we need to be able to create a organization, right? It's a system of systems that it has the ability to quickly adapt.
That's right.
And so those of you that have gone through in your organizations how tough it was to actually adapt in the past year, I'm pretty sure you probably felt that. That's probably why we went even from agile development software teams, adopting agile from 37 to 86%, and why the biggest barrier of going broad with agility is a lot of the things that are happening at a higher level because the system's not supporting it. And so even when we talk about cultural changes, there is a direct correlation of how you structure things that are creating behaviors and actions even up there that is part of your culture, because whatever they do up there is creating everything that's happening down below, that all of the things that you're trying to do when it comes to agility. So I love where we're going and showing this in the conversation today, because
and to be honest,
it's huge. Go ahead.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was thinking about what you just said, because we were in a different kind of transition at the beginning of the pandemic, and then right now we're in another kind of transition. So we're constantly adapting, and we're constantly changing, not just the planning and the strategy, but the behavior that comes with that.
Exactly.
So obviously that's where this is going to be crucial, especially right now.
Yeah, it is crucial. And I just want to add, I think, one final point from my perspective, Veronica. Here's the thing is, the long cycle that we've been doing for so many years now of this kind of working has literally had an impact on people's ability to really break out of that way of thinking and really engage in an outcomes way of working. I mean, it is very difficult for some people. Like, they cannot express something that is beyond an output, right? And I'll just leave it at that. But I'll say, doing this annual planning like we're describing with a cycle built into it, leveraging OKRs, it literally, and I'll use the word again, is a catalyst to help start to create the conditions for people to start to see and experience an outcome-based way of working.
Exactly.
And that's going to take folks high up in the organization to make that happen.
It reminds me of even when back then, just to even introduce the concept of Scrum, right? The most simplest thing, or how hard that was to wrap your head around it. This is the same thing. It's a framework. It is a new way of thinking and actions that you will do. It's going to take time. And you have to start doing it in order to actually see that change happen, right? If you're not moving in that direction or thinking about it right now, then what are you doing to actually take your agility to the next level is really what I'm going to challenge.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes into, as we circle up our quick live here, and those of you that are interested in more of this, put it in the comments, let us know, and we will schedule some of these cool lives with the Larry Man. And we have a special GCW show of the Scaled OKR Certified Coach course offered to all of you, an early bird offer. If you go to the promo code, tell us about that, Larry.
So the Scaled OKR Certified Coach class is going to be unlike other OKR training that you can take. This training will teach you not only those fundamentals about objectives and key results and how to create good objectives and key results, but it's going to teach you how to deploy a successful OKRs program using good fundamental change management practices, teach you how to set that up as a program where you can foster the use of OKRs and outcome-based planning in the organization, learn how to scale that across an organization, better approaches for cascading OKRs from high up in the organization, down lower in the organization. The class, though, is next week. It's the 14th and the 15th. But there is a promo code, and the early bird is extended through the end of this week.
And what do
And
they
there's
get
still
out of
space
that
available.
early bird?
Early bird is $200 off the price of the $10.90. So you get it for $8.95, and then this promo code right here gives you another $100 off.
And I want to
And-
ask, who is it
Great
for? Like, who is the best fit for?
So this is great for folks that are leading change in organizations today of any kind. Okay, if you're a change agent and you are helping to influence how the organization works, you should know the benefits of OKRs and how that can help. If you are an executive or a senior leader in an organization, a head of a line of business, portfolio owner, anybody
HR.
who sets priorities for a scope of work across a line of people, P&L responsibilities, you're the right person for the class.
Yeah, anyone that has to deal with strategy, right?
Mhm.
And change strategy. I'm going to include that. That's why when you talk about change agent, there's also strategy in that, right?
And then agile coaches are good candidates for the class.
That's
too.
a de facto. Do I really need to tell you all that? Come on.
All right.
So
yeah.
we are at our time today, but I want to thank you for coming in, and all of you. We're gonna drop this link that you can use and use that promo code. So those of you that are watching the replay, this is a class that's going to be happening October 14th and 15th. But if you're interested in taking any future classes, drop us a DM. That's direct message. Or comments in this live chat, and we will be watching to see how we can hook you up, because our GCW peeps get the hookup, right, Larry?
That's right. Thank you guys so much.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining the live. I see some people are lurking. We didn't get anybody that is chatting with us, but don't hesitate. If you're watching,
I guess this needs to sit in and be digested a little bit. I'm sure they'll catch up.
But let us know if you want more of this, if you like this, because we're all about changing the game of work. And I believe, and I know Larry believes, and I think we've gotten Roxana, when it comes to being more outcome based, has a direct correlation to how you motivate and how you engage your employees. And it's just good business, folks.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand why you always say I was agile without knowing it.
I know.
So
now you get
that
it.
kind of, I get it now.
All right. Thanks,
Look,
Leonard,
we have
for
Leonard.
joining. All right, Leonard's in the house. So if any of you still want more, we'll come up with a new topic, and we will catch you. We'll catch you on the flip side. All right. See you, everyone.
Bye.